Today, we're jumping into a really clever security feature called dynamic data masking. I mean, the name itself is pretty cool, right? It's all about protecting your most sensitive information by, well, hiding it in plain sight. Let's break down how it all works and why it's such a game changer.
Okay, let's kick things off with something that might surprise you. A survey from the independent Oracle user group found that one of the biggest threats to your company's data probably isn't some shadowy hacker halfway across the world. Nope, it's often someone who's already inside your network, holding the keys to the kingdom.
You know, we spend so much time worrying about external attacks, but the real headache can be managing the people who are supposed to be there. Your database admins, your developers, they need really broad access to build and maintain your systems. But that very same access means your most critical data is just sitting there, potentially at risk.
So here's the fundamental problem, right? It's a balancing act. How do you give people the tools they need to do their jobs effectively without also handing them the keys to every single piece of sensitive customer info? We're talking emails, social security numbers, the whole shebang. It's a real tightrope walk.
This is where a super important security idea comes into play. It's called the principle of least privilege. And honestly, it's as simple as it sounds. Only give people the absolute minimum permissions they need to do their job and nothing more. When you do that, you shrink what we call the attack surface, which basically just limits the amount of damage that can be done if an account ever gets compromised.
Okay, so that sounds simple enough, but here's the catch. What do you do when a developer needs to look at a customer table to, say, fix a bug, but that same table has both harmless info and super sensitive personal data all mixed together? You can't just block them from the entire table, or they can't do their work. So how do you solve that puzzle?
Well, the answer is a really elegant technology called dynamic data masking, or DDM for short. It's a feature that's built right into modern databases like Microsoft SQL Server, and it's designed to solve this exact problem.
Think of it like taking a black marker to a sensitive document before you hand it to someone. The original info is still there, totally safe and unchanged in the database. But for certain people who look at it, key parts are blacked out on the fly. And the most important part? The underlying data is never, ever altered. All right, so that's the theory, but what does this actually look like in the real world? Let's walk through a quick example, because this is where you can really see just how powerful this is.
Let's imagine you've got a data analyst. They need to pull some customer information for a report, a totally normal, everyday part of their job. So they run a standard SQL query to grab the customer's full name, their email, and their social security number.
And boom! This is the magic of DDM. A database administrator who has full privileges runs that exact same query and sees the complete, real data you see on the left. But when our analyst runs it, the database automatically masks those sensitive fields in real time. They see the version on the right. The best part? The application code doesn't have to change one bit. It's all handled by the database itself. And you've got a ton of control over how this data gets masked. Systems like SQL Server and MySQL give you a whole toolbox of functions. You can completely black out the data, or maybe just show the last 4 digits of a credit card with a partial mask. There are even special functions for things like emails. It gives you really fine-grained control over exactly what your users can and can't see.
Now, you might be thinking, hang on, isn't this just a fancy word for encryption? And that's a really common question. But the truth is, they're designed to do 2 fundamentally different jobs.
Here's the simplest way to think about it. Encryption, like TDE, protects your data at rest. So if a thief breaks in and physically steals your server's hard drive, the data is just unreadable garbage to them. Masking, on the other hand, protects data that's in use. It's all about controlling what authorized, logged-in users are able to see in the first place.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. Microsoft's own documentation puts it perfectly. Encryption doesn't solve access control problems. Think about it. Even if your database files are encrypted on the disk, a developer with the right permissions can still log in and query that data perfectly clearly. That's the gap that dynamic data masking is designed to fill. So it's pretty clear that DDM is a seriously powerful tool. But, and this is a big but, it's not a magic bullet. To be really effective, it has to be just one piece of a much larger security puzzle. Real security is all about layers. You start with a solid foundation of access controls, just managing who can log in the first place. Then you add a layer of dynamic data masking to control what they can see. On top of that, you add activity monitoring to watch for weird behavior. And finally, you have encryption protecting the physical files at rest. Each layer protects against a different kind of threat. So as we wrap this up, the big question you should be asking yourself is this: is your organization's most sensitive data actually secure? Or is it just waiting for the right person with the right permissions to come along and look at it? Because at the end of the day, using tools like dynamic data masking is about fundamentally reducing that risk of exposure from the